Hello, I'm Mason Aldridge of AHS-TV, and in this segment of Best and Ask, we will be taking a look at new school rules and how they may change the way students handle themselves in school. We will be talking with various students and one of our school security guards. But first, let's take a closer look.
Hello, I'm Cece Riggy of AHS-TV, joined by Harper Volk, and today we're going to be taking a closer look at why some of the morning rules in place that might not always be the most popular with the student body are implemented from the point of view of our administration. We're now joined by Mr. Toy, the principal in charge of discipline here at AHS. Mr. Toy, thanks for talking with us today.
Yeah, thank you for having me.
Why are the lobby doors locked at 7:25 each morning?
Lobby doors, we changed that this year where we started locking them at 7:25 because students are expected to be in period 0, seminar period, at 7:30. So by us keeping the doors open until 7:30, there's no way you could possibly make it to seminar on time. So you would be tardy for that.
Yeah.
So we did that to encourage students to get in the door by 7:25 so they can make it to class on time.
Yeah.
There have been times when one of the principals has been in the student lot motioning for students to come into the building before they're required to. Is this an issue based on safety, or?
Yeah, sometimes Mr. Cominos does it. He doesn't do it daily. It depends on what's going on. It is a safety issue because when students are on school grounds, we have to make sure they're our liability, our responsibility then. And we got to make sure they're behaving appropriately, and following school rules, even when they're in the parking lot. Another issue is we had one day where we had a threat to the school, and we wanted students in as quickly as possible. And the other issue is instead of everybody rushing in right at 7:25 and clogging everything up in the office and into metal detectors, it's just easier if students come in when they get here and get settled in seminar.
Do you think that there should be less severe consequences for someone that's a couple minutes late, or versus those who are drastically tardy, like missing a lot of period 0?
Well, when we have some students actually miss often, and they'll miss multiple periods every day, and that affects them academically, of course. And what happens is those start turning into actual illegal absences, which becomes an attendance issue. So I know some of the kids come in a couple minutes late, but we have to have a cutoff somewhere.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I think it's important that, and it's important for me and your teachers and everybody else to get to work on time.
Yeah.
And I've always been a person that's, if you're not early, you're late.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So I arrive to school every day at 6:30, along with my daughters that go here. They come here that time as well. So I think, the 7:25, you need to be in the door, get to class at 7:30. I just think that's the way it needs to be. I do.
Do you feel that lunch detention is an effective consequence for students being tardy to school?
Honestly, there's a progression of consequences, as is with anything else, and it's outlined in our board policy. But lunch detention is the first thing we go to, and we wait. Once students get 3 tardies accumulated, they'll get 2 lunch detentions to start. I think it has been effective for most kids because our numbers are down from last year. The problem the last couple years is we just had a difficult time, me especially, keeping up with all the school tardies. Just with everything else, it was difficult. This year we found a way to do it. So I think that's why it's a little bit of a shock to students. But this is not a new rule. It's just a rule that we're enforcing better this year, So I think it has been effective. Some students it hasn't, so they get the next step, which ends up being in-school suspension, after-school detentions, and so forth. So I do think the lunch detentions help because I know you'd rather be over in the cafeteria with your friends. So,
Right.
Yeah.
Do you think that these rules may cause extra stress on students who are trying to meet them and be on time, but then occasionally have things that make them late?
I think we all deal with stress and anxiety and everything else at some point, So I don't think it does. I mean, you're talking 5 minutes. A lot of kids, if they would just get up and get moving 5 minutes quicker, maybe don't stop at the coffee shop on the way here, at Curly Tail or Dunkin', and just get here, that I really don't think that's that stressful 5 minutes. So
Yeah.
I don't, and if it is, students are always more than welcome to come see us and talk with us about it, because I will tell you there's occasions where students have situations happen in the morning, just like, maybe some teachers would or I would if the snow happens tomorrow.
Yeah.
And we'll excuse tardies as well. Just like we excuse absences. So if you bring an excuse, say, running late, this happened, we'll excuse that and we won't count that against you. We're reasonable about things. The whole reason we give consequences is to change behaviors, and we go with the minimal consequence possible and then we work our way up. So we're hoping that what we're doing does change behaviors, because it's important to the district, to the school, to your community members, your families, and everything else, that we produce you. You guys are a product of the school, right? And we want to produce educationally prepared, responsible students when you get out to the world. Okay, and part of
Yeah.
it's that core value of responsibility. Sometimes you just got to be responsible and do what you got to do. And we do want you guys to learn that and get to school on time. And I think you guys usually do a pretty good job of it. So that's it.
How do you think you can alleviate some of these, like, the backlash coming from these new rules? Like, do you think there should be meetings in the morning to talk about it so the students can understand why it's happening, or?
Well, once again, that isn't a new rule. It's a newly enforced. We're enforcing it differently this year. We did speak about it at the class meetings at the beginning of the year, and we did let everybody know that was going to be a change this year. The parent-student handbooks that you guys are supposed to review and sign off on at the beginning of the year, it's in there as well. So it isn't new. But I do think it's always good to collaborate with students. Students give us a different perspective on things, because you definitely see things differently than we do. So I do think that's a good idea. It's something we can always sit down, talk about anytime you have concerns or questions or want some clarification. You're always more than welcome to do that. And we can even look to be a little more proactive with that as administration. So we're always looking to make things better.
All right, thank you, Mr. Toy, for joining us today.
Thanks, Cece. For those of you just joining us, I'm Mason Aldridge of AHS-TV, and now I'm joined by Mike Kapustik to talk about the new school rules at AHS. Should students expect the rules to become more or less strict in the coming years?
I would always expect most rules to become stricter.
What was it that caused the administration to crack down harder on rule breakers?
I don't see much things harder this year than any other year. Sometimes we see rules enforced more stricter based on what problems we're having here at the school. Okay, so if we have a specific problem, then as security, we're asked to enforce harder specific rules. For instance, if there's a specific problem at the stadium, we're asked to, or in the restrooms, then we're asked to check the restrooms more frequently and enforce the school rules in the restrooms. That's just for instance.
Yeah, that's understandable. When students show up late, what effect does that have on AHS?
Well, obviously, I mean, again, that's not really a security, but when students show up late, it's a disruption for their class, their teachers. It's just basically this disruption. Here at the school, don't forget, we're not just teaching reading, writing, and arithmetic. There's certain life lessons you learn, and when you graduate from here and you go on to your future vocation or go to college, you're expected to be on time. And again, that starts with us teaching you, the students here, to be on time for school.
In every rule, there's discretion of people here, or is it more of an overhead group just deciding what goes and what doesn't?
If you're asking about where the rules are coming from, obviously you have to remember, I don't make the rules. Yeah. I'm just in charge of enforcing them. And most of the rules we enforce are obviously for the safety and security of the building and the students here, okay? That's our primary concern is security guards. Other rules are being enforced by the staff here and faculty. The rules and procedures and policies are actually made up from the administrators and the school board, and it comes down from there. And they tell us, they dictate the rules.
What are some rules you'd like to see implemented in the future?
And personally, this would be me personally, again, the rules all come down from administration and from the school board. But personally, it might be nicer to have assigned parking spaces for everybody out in the parking lot. Okay, that way a student leaves his lights on, we know exactly who it is, where his parking spot is, even if he's not a senior, a junior maybe, that somebody doesn't have their spot. And I know what's becoming another big problem I'd like to see is a lot of the loitering in the main area at the football games in the stadium. I can see the administration and other people getting a little bit frustrated by that, so I would expect some type of rule change there.
If we decide to enforce the rules in a less strict manner, do you think we might experience a positive shift in behavior? Because kids are no longer given an outline on what they're not supposed to do.
Well, again, personally, I wouldn't expect if we stopped enforcing rules or lightened up on certain rules. It's been my experience that's taken advantage of, rather than everybody saying, oh, yeah, if we don't comply with this particular rule, you know, they're going to come and enforce it harder. It's more along the lines they would take advantage of that particular leniency. So that's my personal opinion.
Do you feel that every rule that's in place has the school community's best interests at heart?
Absolutely. I mean, that's why a lot of the rules and regulations and policies are made to have everybody's best interest, for everybody's best interest, whether it's for safety purposes or behavioral purposes or security purposes. You know, they don't just sit around and say, what can we do to make people's lives more difficult? Okay, there's probably a reason behind every rule and policy we have.
If students have suggestions about rules they believe we should implement or do away with, is there any specific person they should go to?
If I was a student here and I disagreed with a rule or didn't understand a rule, you can always, I mean, you could ask anybody, why is this rule in place? And if you feel it's unfair or unnecessary or you disagree with that rule, then like anything else in life, you would go up the chain of administration. You could talk to your principals about it and see what they have to say and why this is in place. And also you can address the school board. There's nothing to stop a student from addressing the school board if they go through the right channels of addressing the school board.
Are there any rules that were put in place during COVID that stuck?
I've thought about, I can't think of any rules that we had during COVID in 2020 and 2021 that are still in place right now, not that I'm aware of.
During COVID, there were hallways that would be one way. Why was that?
I'm not quite sure the specific reason, but you know, all the rules and policy that were put in place during the COVID pandemic, the height of the pandemic, were for specific health reasons to try to minimize the spread of the disease. So that's you know, a medical reason of why keeping traffic flowing in one direction would help decrease the spread of the disease. I'm not quite sure why that would be.
What rules are most often broken?
I would say the most often would be the wearing of headgear on your head. That's probably the most often broken. We still, I mean, everybody knows you're not supposed to wear anything on your head, and we still see kids wandering the halls with hoodies up or hats on, and you know, we just tell them to take it off. Most students comply with that. Hands to yourself. There's a lot of grabbing and horseplay in the hallways. And then, again, it seems innocent. It's just your buddies fooling around in the halls. But the reason that comes into play and the reason we don't like to see that is, again, sometimes that horseplay gets out of hand, somebody gets mad, somebody gets hurt, and now a full-fledged serious fight breaks out.
What rules do you think are most essential to keeping the students in line?
Well, it depends what you mean by keeping them in line, to keep them on track, where they're supposed to be and where they're supposed to go. I mean, a lot of it is tardiness, okay? It's, so a child, that's in my opinion. If students are said, hey, I have to be at this class at this time, that keeps a lot of students from aimlessly wandering the halls, fooling around in the bathrooms and causing problems in the bathrooms or whatever between classes. And like I said, keeping your hands to yourself, horseplay, that also helps prevent problems with fights and other more serious physical altercations.
If students aren't allowed to go out to their car without being accompanied by a security guard, if the security guard turns them down, what are they supposed to do?
Well, I mean, again, this comes down a couple of years ago. We had students going out to their car for every little bit and things, every small item that they wanted to get out of their car. Yeah, they got permission from their teacher. It was study hall, and so we were allowing kids. But again, there's an example of students taking advantage of that. So we had the same kids coming down every day at the same time, going out to their car. Can I go out and get my water bottle? Can I go out and get my folder? Can I go out and get this out of my car or that out of my car? So again, administration changed the policy. Now you have to have a legitimate educational reason to go out to your car if you've forgotten something. And you must be escorted by a security guard, again, for your safety and security. So most likely, if we deny you or we say we can't go to your car right now, it's one, because we don't have a security guard available, or two, there's not a legitimate educational purpose for going out to your car. If you have to go out there and get a notebook if you got, that's one thing. If you have to go out there and get your water bottle or get a bag of chips you left in your car, that's a different story.
Why can't students go to their classrooms before 7:15?
The reason being is the faculty is not in their classrooms until 7:15. So we basically everybody's held in the main lobby until the faculty is prepared for their day at 7:15.
If students knew why the rules were put in place, do you think they would be more likely to follow them?
I would think so, yeah. I mean, if you know why we're doing something, then yes, I'm more likely to follow. If you know why you have to put your seatbelt on in your car, it's for your safety, it's so you don't die in case you crash, you're more likely to put that seatbelt on. So, yeah.
Have there been less instances of students bringing tobacco products into school compared to last year?
We're not seeing a whole lot of tobacco products if you're talking about snuff or cigarettes. Because I think your generation's switched from cigarettes and snuff to using vapes. So I don't see a whole lot of tobacco products per se. Of course, we all know the vapes have the nicotine in them. So that's what we see more than tobacco products at all.
How do rules in the junior high differ from those in the senior high?
The junior high, they tend to be a little bit stricter in the junior high based on maturity, okay? You can see a different maturity level sometimes between junior high students and senior high students. Junior high students are just coming up from the elementary schools, don't forget some of them. And in the elementary schools, everything was a little bit even stricter, okay? Everybody lined up together to go to the bathroom in your class. Everybody moved from your classroom to your special class, to music and to art together as one unit, supervised by a teacher. Here, again, this is their first time where, okay, I'm done with this class, now I have to get myself to the next class on time. So now they're given a little bit more responsibility that they didn't have before. However, they don't have quite the responsibility as maybe the upperclassmen do. For instance, We can see we have a senior court for the seniors. Why? They're a little bit more mature than even the upperclassmen. So they get to use the senior court because they can maturely use the senior court without fooling around out there, making sure you're done with your lunch on time and being on time for your next class, not leaving a mess out there, that sort of thing.
How do rules in our school compare to the rules when you were in school? Are they more or less strict?
Okay, so if I was in the school, high school in the early 80s, okay, clearly you have it more strict than I ever had it, okay? And that starts from basically Columbine. A lot of the rules and restrictions you guys have today are based on safety and security, okay? Locking the doors, having an armed guard or school resource officer at schools. That didn't exist when I went to high school. Again, it wasn't something that was needed at the time. So yes, I would definitely tell you we weren't quite as strict as we are today.
Do you think all rules are equal from students to student, even the dress code?
As far as I can see, in my personal opinion, yeah, they seem very equal. They're equally enforced. Nobody should be getting a break, so to speak. So yeah, I see a equal, even the dress code. I mean, we tell the females to take hats and hoodies down just like we tell males to take hats and hoodies down.
Do you ever get complaints from parents about the rules being too strict or not strict enough?
Personally, no. Usually parents do not complain to the security guards about the rules being too strict. So I don't hear about the complaints from parents.
What are some things that students should expect in their future?
No phones in class, I would assume. And again, that's me. I don't have any inside information. I don't make the rules. I just watch the news. That seems to be a trend going through the news now, is some school districts I see are experimenting with keeping phones out of class because they're a distraction. Other school districts I see are experimenting with giving out some type of bag a student is supposed to put their phones in, but that is something I would see in the future coming down the pike. But I have no inside information. I don't know that our school board is even looking at that.
Thank you, Mike Kapustik, for joining us today to get a hawk's eye view on the new rules. Until next time, I'm Mason Aldridge of AHS-TV. Keep on soaring.
Just as no two oak leaves are the same, your journey at IUP is uniquely yours. Yours to explore your interests, pursue your passions, discover your calling. You will face challenges. Success comes with challenges, but you'll never have to go it alone. Whatever you need, from academics to wellness support, we'll be here for you throughout your journey. Get in the Grove at IUP.
Welcome back to AHS-TV. I'm your host, Jaden Sims, and today I'm joined with Miss Douglas. And we're going to be talking about what her high school life was like and how she got her teaching start. So, Miss Douglas, tell us a little bit about yourself. What do you do here at AHS?
So here at AHS, I have two subjects that I teach. I teach astronomy, and I teach an advanced biology to 9th graders.
Gotcha. So I know that I had you for English, so do you have more than one, major to be able to teach?
So I'm certified in a few different things. When I originally went to college, I went for elementary education, and then while I was there, a couple of friends encouraged me to pick up a degree in special education, and then I tested into English 7th through 12th and biology, and I am currently working towards my certification for astronomy.
Gotcha. So did you ever end up teaching any elementary school or no?
Actually, that's a really great question. I taught elementary for 1 year, but I was only in an elementary for half day. So I went between a high school and an elementary, and I did Title I reading. So
Okay.
that was a totally different ball game. I had never done that, and it was a big learning curve.
Right.
And I really liked it, but the rest of my path just took me towards the high school
That's good. And what would you prefer? Like, do you like the high school kids or do you like the younger kids better?
Oh, now I could never imagine working with anyone below ninth grade.
Right.
Even middle school. I think it
get
would
it.
be crazy. They're wild animals down there in the middle school.
Right. And like, what like you like definitely like to teach bio or something more than you would like elementary school, right?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, I think I've been waiting for a long time for a biology position to open, which is why originally I kind of worked my way into English. I had done that as a co-teacher, so it was co-taught, and then I did that for a few years, and there just wasn't an open science position. But once a science position opened, I put my name in the ring for it.
Right. So that's your big thing is bio then.
Yeah, I love bio. I'm actually growing to really love astronomy too. I have been posting a lot of the celestial events that are happening lately in the sky. And then last year, I took my students to see the total solar eclipse, and I just feel like that was life-changing. And so now it's becoming a passion as well. I like science in general.
Gotcha. And where did you get your college education?
So I went to Clarion University for my undergrad, and then I went to IUP for what would be known as a master's equivalency. I actually went for school counseling, which I didn't finish. I did 30 credits, and then when I got into my practicum and I started working in counseling students, I realized that was a really, big emotional and psychological toll, and I just decided that I didn't want to pursue that path.
Gotcha. And how many years were you in college?
So I did, for my undergrad, I was a dual major since I was majoring in elementary education and special education, so I did 5 years. At the time, that was how long it took to get through the dual major. And then, of course, the year I graduated, they cut that final year out, and you could get all that in 4 years, which would be significantly cheaper.
Right.
But it took 5 years, and then after those years, I did 2 years in for my master's equivalency.
And then after that, did you start teaching right off the bat after you were out of college, or?
That's another great question. So I'm trying to think. I don't think I subbed anywhere, really. I applied. I was looking for full-time jobs. I might have done a couple days over in New Bethlehem because at the time I worked in Dayton. But yeah, I don't think I subbed anywhere for a significant period of time. I actually was hired full-time at the Summit Academy over in Herman, Pennsylvania, which is very close to Butler. So it's a school for juvenile delinquents who live there. So it's residential, and that was just a very intense job.
Right. And would you say your time there kind of shaped you as a teacher? Would you say it made you better or worse?
That is such a great question. I think that it made me a much better teacher. It made me much more resilient. I have a lot of grit, especially when it comes to classroom management and working through shaping behavior to being, to getting it where you want it to be with students that might struggle with behavioral outbursts or things of that nature. I think working there really taught me a lot about rapport building and how important that is, because if you don't have a relationship with a student and they're doing something that's not desirable or it's inappropriate and you try to redirect them without having a good relationship and without showing mutual respect, it can go very poorly. Mm-hmm. So I think the one thing that I learned there was just how to rapport build, and then obviously classroom management kind of goes hand in hand with that.
Ms. Douglas, thank you for joining us. That's all the time we have for today.
It's been lovely talking with you, Jaden. Thank you so much for choosing me for your interview.
Thank you for joining us.
Well, that's our show for this week. Best in the Nest is a production of students enrolled in television production courses at Armstrong High School. Join us again next time for a look at some of the unique things happening in and around Armstrong High School from the students' point of view. Until then, from our Nestiers, have a great week.